Finally, in this week, we'll think through three kinds of nominalism, three solutions to the problem of the one over the many that do not appeal to universals to account for properties and relations, but rather argue that, as Locke claimed, quote, all things that exist are only particulars, unquote. First, class nominalism. Class nominalism reductively explains properties in terms of classes or sets. For a banana to be curved is for the banana to be a member of the class of curved things. Two bananas resemble one another in being curved by virtue of being members of the same class. At face value, it seems counterintuitive to explain a particular having or two particulars sharing a property in terms of class membership. Is this the proper order? Shouldn't the explanation go the other way round, so that two bananas are members of the same class because they have the same property? More technically, class nominalism faces the problems of coexistensive properties. If all and only the same objects have two properties, for example the properties of having a heart and having kidneys, so that the class of having a heart is the class of having kidneys, then on class nominalism, the property of having a heart is the very same as the property of having kidneys. By the way, a related problem is that on class nominalism, non-instantiated properties should be all identical, because they all constitute the class without any members, the null class. However, David Lewis has suggested a solution to the problem of coextensive properties. If one conceives of extension in terms of possible worlds, there are possible worlds in which possible animals have a heart but no kidneys, or vice versa, and such non-actual but possible particulars mark the difference between the two classes and in turn allow to tell the property of having a heart from the property of having kidneys. A second variety of nominalism we have to think through is resemblance nominalism. Both our bananas are curved because they are both members of a class of objects that resemble one another. However, this relation of resemblance is primitive, that is, unanalyzable. Why? Well, if you would analyze the resemblance relation, you would have to say something like the bananas resemble one another in respect of their color or in respect of their shape. So you would have to admit of respects. And that, of course, would be smuggling in universals again. But it's hard to maintain resemblance nominalism without admitting of respects. Objects typically have several properties, and so, according to resemblance nominalism, they belong to several resembling classes. But the banana is not yellow because it resembles curved things, nor is it curved because it resembles yellow things. So it seems that the resemblance nominalist must admit of respects and hence universals to solve the one over the many problem after all. Russell took this objection further. The alleged unanalyzable relation of resemblance is itself a universal, because it is repeated countlessly many times. It holds, for instance, between many pairs of objects that are the very shade of yellow of our bananas. Resemblance nominalists also have to face the problem of uniquely instantiated property, a property that only one object has. Let's consider a possible world in which there is only one banana being curved. How is the resemblance nominalist going to account for it? The object has a property, the banana is curved, but by stipulation the banana is alone in the world, and so there are no other objects to resemble. The third and last variety of nominalism that we will consider generalizes the idea of uniquely instantiated properties. Trope nominalism reductively explains objects having or sharing properties in terms of tropes or abstract particulars. Ordinary objects like you and me and the bananas are concrete particulars. But the shape of a banana or your mass are abstract particulars or tropes. Now, according to trope nominalism, our two bananas do not literally have the same shape. The curvedness of one banana is one trope and the curvedness of the other banana is another trope. And between these two tropes there is a relation of exact resemblance. Another formulation is that while there is qualitative identity between the shapes of our bananas, there is no numerical identity. It's not one and the same shape over two bananas, it's many abstract particulars over just as many concrete particulars, although there may be a relation of exact resemblance or qualitative identity between the tropes. Remember Russell's objection to resemblance nominalism. The relation of resemblance itself is a universal. Does it also apply to the relation of exact resemblance between qualitatively identical but numerically distinct tropes? Not necessarily. So if the trope nominalist maintains that relations are tropes as well, and hence that between each pair of tropes that exactly resemble one another, there is a uniquely instantiated relation of exact resemblance, they seem to be off the hook. However, the cost is considerable because it generates a new regress problem. The trope theorist will have to argue that it's tropes all the way up. To be honest, we haven't quite finished our bite. But as you will notice, what we will serve you in the next week is a variation of the first bite. It concerns a tightly related problem defined from a very different perspective.